Republican senatorial candidate and former football player Herschel Walker, but he's running on conservative family values. Especially calling out the lack of active and engaged fathers in the black community. It's something, of course, that Republicans have done for a long time, especially, with prominent members of the black community. So now they blame fatherless households for the breakdown of the family and for, the bad conditions in these black neighborhoods, etc. Right? Now, big surprise that he himself is not living up to the standard that he sets for others in his community. Turns out the Daily Beast has found that Walker has, for the last decade, been estranged from his second son, whom he has not publicly acknowledged. The son, whose name the Daily Beast is withholding for privacy concerns, because they're 10, grew up more than 1,500 miles from Walker's Texas home. The mother, whose name they're also withholding for privacy, had to take Walker to court after giving birth in order to secure a declaration of paternity and child support, a case that he had fought for nearly a year. The Daily Beast confirmed these events through public posts, court documentation, where Walker is declared to be the child's father, and a person close to the boy's family with direct knowledge of the events. That person told the Daily Beast that while Walker does send Christmas cards and birthday presents, hey, that's nice, he otherwise has not played an active parental role in raising his second son, preferring, of course, the first. The child has not met or spoken with his half-brother, Christian, that person says. So now look, okay, let's be fair about this. It could have been that the mother didn't want him in his child's life. Again, entirely possible, especially given the history of violence and threats. So we'll get into that, right? But then again, if that were the case, and she didn't want anything to do with him, well, what about taking him to court for child support and allowing him to take the last name, or pushing for him to take the last name of Walker? So that's interesting, right? Walker's campaign manager, however, Scott Paradise, told the Daily Beast in a statement that Walker is proud of his children. Herschel had a child years ago when he wasn't married. He supported the child and continues to do so. Well, yes, for child support, so that's fair. He's proud of his children. To suggest that Herschel is hiding the child because he hasn't used him in his political campaign is offensive and absurd. Well, okay, but that's kind of a straw man argument, really. Because nobody's saying that, like, oh, you're hiding him because you're not using him in a political campaign. No, I would prefer that nobody use their children in political campaigns. It's cringy. Let's not do that. No, the issue here is a person that's going around the black community and telling them that everything that's going wrong with the black community is purely the fault of black culture, deadbeat dads, and things like that, and has nothing to do with generational poverty, racism, the carceral state, economic policy that leaves the black community behind, lack of resources. Again, after all, Herschel Walker, he made it. Now why can't you? Well, not everybody is a gifted sports player. I'm sorry, I can't play the sports ball. I guess I will just languish in poverty. Again, you've got to be really talented, really good at what you do in order to make it on the field. And by the way, really lucky as well. Relying on those things, you have to understand that, like, athletes, they're pretty top tier. All right? Look, if I go out on the football field, if I go out on the basketball court with one of these athletes, I'm going to get fucking destroyed. Okay? I'm an average person with very little sports ability. All right? So, gosh, I'm just really making myself look great here, am I? Well, look, I'm saying that's not a life plan. You might as well hinge your future successes on winning the lottery. Because being an athlete is an incredible amount of, again, luck, timing, and by the way, resources as well. Because you've got to have the time to train and things like that. And of course, there's genetic factors involved. So look, again, my point is, not a life plan. Not everybody can make it. You can't just go and play basketball and escape poverty. There are systemic issues here. It's systemic issues that we should actually, I don't know, solve. And by the way, those systemic issues make it more difficult for Black people to have the same opportunities as their white peers, who also might not have a lot of opportunity. Look, you have poorly funded education. It's one of those things. And yes, family dynamic, by the way, can play into this. If your family, by the way, has money, the resources to send you to practice, or just resources in general. But I find it very, very interesting and a little disturbing, by the way, that conservatives, their argument is to point to fatherless homes, but they only do so in reference to discussing Black issues like Black poverty. And then, of course, they peddle this 70% of Black children do not have fathers myth. So, you know who actually knows the numbers? The CDC. Yeah, they actually track stuff like this. The majority of Black fathers actually live with their children. 2.5 million versus 1.7 who don't. By the way, the stats do not account for men that have died, passed away, or the fact that couples may be unmarried and living together with the fathers in the home, or the couples might be divorced, but the father plays an active role. Men might also be incarcerated. They might be separated from their families and even prevented from staying in their homes with their families if that housing is federally provided. And so there's all this stuff, right? And there's all these stereotypes. And unfortunately, people like Walker are kind of recruited by the right wing to perpetuate those things. And there is this financial incentive from the right wing to use people like Walker to vilify other Black people, especially when it comes to single mothers. Okay? During a September 2020 interview, Walker said this. He said, "I want to apologize to the African-American community because a fatherless home is a major, major problem." The month before, Walker, who co-parented his 22-year-old son, Christian, with both his ex-wife and his current wife, told right-wing internet personalities Diamond and Silk that if you have a child with a woman, even if you have to leave that woman, you don't leave that child. Well, that's great. I would agree with that, except that he didn't seem to be doing that. I mean, look, the image people had of Herschel Walker has been pretty much dismantled at this point. Okay? Look, he's had some issues with domestic violence, other issues. In fact, in 2008, Walker was romantically involved with at least 3 women at the same time. One of those women, known as Blanchard, who in February 2012 identified herself as Walker's fiance. The next month, January 2012, the third woman, Micah Dean, also claimed to be an on and off relationship with Walker lasting around 2 decades. And by the way, 2 of those 3 women that I had mentioned have accused Walker of violent behavior, including death threats against him. Walker denies the claims, but again, they're also all co-parenting together. Very, very strange. Now, Dean made that claim in a police report filed in Irving, Texas, in which she alleged that Walker had threatened to, quote-unquote, blow her head off and then take his own life. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported Dean died in 2019. Not related, by the way. Walker's first wife, Cindy Grossman, has also accused him of being physically abusive. She also claimed Walker once threatened to blow her brains out. In 2005, Grossman secured a protective order against Walker over the threat allegations and even led to a judge temporarily revoking Walker's Second Amendment rights, according to the Associated Press. Now, Walker, interestingly enough, he's against gun control. Unsurprisingly, actually. When asked about it, for example, after the Uvalde massacre, he basically conjured up a word salad. Couldn't really answer the question. Well, I don't know, maybe we should do some mental health or something like that. Maybe create a government agency to watch men in their social media or something. Okay. On policy, Walker has also taken a hardline anti-abortion stance, calling for a total ban with no exceptions. So yeah, there's some hypocrisy here. Look, again, the problem here is the guy is out here lamenting absent fathers when being absent to his 10-year-old. That's weird. But worse than that really is when he points the finger at everybody else and assists with white supremacist talking points. And those are, by the way, again, they're pushed by the far right. They want to point at the black people as being lazy, irresponsible, and of course a lot of them will go to like a genetic component and say, well, obviously they're inferior. Look at their culture. It's so bad. That's why we have criminals. So many criminals. And by the way, it's the fathers, and they're just, not, they're predispositioned to just be fatherless. And that's what it is. So again, that's the white nationalist, white supremacist talking points. And they're incredibly gross. And it's super, super gross because you see this not just with Herschel Walker, who's, running for office, but also people like Candace Owens, who consistently say these things about the black community, go after the black community, blame black culture, and all of that, and push white supremacist talking points. It really is gross. But, as always, follow the money, and you'll know why.